Test, test, test. Test. All right, I'm getting my audio. Are people hearing me?
Yes.
All right, let me try to get this running. Ken, do you want to go first, or do you want to do the news first?
Yeah, let me go first. That way I can, sit back and relax the rest of the meeting. When I do the presentation, can you let me share the screen? Because I'll put up my my sheet that I have. The one I sent you, when I reduced the size of it, some of the things became blurry.
Okay, I don't see a restriction. Let's see. Okay, there it is. I can do me or everybody. That's maybe not good. Can I do just you? Hi, Carl. People are coming in. Post pin.
Hi, Steve.
Move.
Let's see.
I think your virtual background was confusing that, Ken.
Yeah, that's why I'm changing it. And then there. Can everybody see that?
Yep, I got it.
Okay.
All right. Is YouTube working? All right. Is YouTube working? All right. Is YouTube working?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 42.
All right, that's getting into YouTube. All right, I need to go get a drink.
Okay. I'm is Steve providing the drinks?
Virtual drinks.
Virtual drinks.
Let's have a bourbon.
Virgin. Oh, yeah, I'll go for that. Bourbon Manhattan.
Bourbon Manhattan. All right. Sounds good. Since he likes it, I've been looking at bourbons. So I'm assuming bourbon whiskey. Is that where bourbon is?
Bourbon is a type of whiskey, but you have whiskey, you have scotch, you have bourbon.
Scotch is only whiskey that's made in Scotland from certain types of corn. Bourbon is made in Kentucky using wheat and aged in wine barrels from Bourbon, France. Bourbon.
Bourbon.
Yeah, there are legal definitions.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just called whiskey.
And there's also legal definition of vodka, from what you have in vodka.
Yes.
And if you get the cheapest vodka, is probably just as good as any of the vodkas out there.
And why is that? Because they're all made basically the same?
Basically, like the story about Grey Goose and how that got started. The guy was, you know, in a family that was in the, I think, the wine and liquor business distributing, and he wanted to have a product to get something going. So he went to France, and they developed Grey Goose. It's I think it's only distilled once, and a lot of even cheaper ones are distilled 2 or 3 times. And people who, so he put this out there and doubled the price.
Wow.
Of the vodka, called it Grey Goose, and put it in a nice bottle, and everybody thinks that, oh, it's such a great vodka. So if you do a test taste with vodka, the cheapest vodkas have come out the best. Bless you.
Thank you.
I think MythBusters did a test on that, on how many distillations, and is top shelf vodka any better than low end vodka?
Yeah, there was a podcast on NPR. They have a couple different podcasts. What's the name of it? But it did a thing on vodka with taste testing and all the different expensive vodkas, and they found the cheapest vodka is just as good as the more expensive, probably many times even better. That's why when I always get a drink with vodka in it, I say, give me the cheapest vodka. It doesn't matter.
Especially if you're going to mix it with something.
Right. Right.
Now, I am mainly a wine drinker, some beer, but when we were in Scotland on a tour a few years ago, we went to this distillery called Blair Athol, and you can only get their 12-year-old Scotch in Scotland. And you, as part of the tour, you did a sampling. It was sublime. And it's 12-year-old Scotch, but when we were in the barrel storage room, barn, whatever, there was one barrel that was labeled 1968. Love to have some of that. Anyhow, I'm going to be.
I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say a shout out to Frank. I missed you tonight. Did you go over to Applebee's? You're muted, Frank. You're muted.
There we go. No, I didn't. I stayed home. My son has my car, so I figured it might have been too crowded for me.
There was hardly anybody there.
Oh, so everybody had the same feeling.
I guess there weren't that many people. I mean, there was social distancing, but still there wasn't that many people. So.
Yeah, I thought about you.
Oh, well,
though.
next year.
Yeah,
I thought about you. I thought I'd see you.
Well, we always have a
for
date
all of you don't know.
Day.
Well, my son decided not to come. But for all you who don't know, Frank and I are veterans, so we always go to see each other at Applebee's for their free dinner. So always next year, right?
It's always next year.
So I guess.
Did you go to Denny's for your free breakfast too?
Well, there's no Denny's around this area.
Yeah, to go to Henrietta.
No, Henrietta is still open.
Oh, is it? Oh.
But before noon. Oh, hey, Carl, I didn't know you were a vet too. All right.
Go ahead.
So, there's no meeting. Say hi, everybody, today and have a day and Thanksgiving, and for no you run next month. But anyways, it's very weak weather and everything, so it's nice that everybody's joining us tonight. So we're going to start out with Q&A, Steve, or how'd you want to do it?
I think Ken was going to start because there's so much
Okay,
news.
Ken,
It's going to generate questions.
First?
Sure.
Or do you want to wait?
Nope, I'll go first.
Hi, Carol.
Okay.
Okay. Let me just get in a minute. Are you going to let? Am I able to share the screen? Steve?
Let's see. Yeah, you should be able to start.
Okay, I'll get it in a second. Hi everybody, I'm Ken Schultz, and tonight I am going to do a short presentation on solid state drives and why we should use solid state drives. And I know this is one of the big things many years ago, or I shouldn't say many years ago, they always said if you put in more memory, that's going to speed up your computer. And people go out and buy the memory, and yeah, geez, I really don't notice a big difference in the speed of my computer. But they keep, saying, well, that's one way to speed it up. Well, lately, SSDs have been around for a little bit while, but they've been so expensive that it's been kind of out of reach for a lot of people. But now they've kind of come down. And my presentation is, why to replace, or if you're buying a new computer, a solid state drive in your computer. And why don't we get started? And I'm going to just put this up here. And can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Why to replace a hard disk drive with a solid state drive? Everybody got that?
Yep.
Oh, pardon me? Should I make it bigger?
Yeah, you could make it bigger. We're seeing your entire screen, not just the window.
Okie dokie.
The beach is nice.
Yeah, that's where we go every year. So let me.
I think you have to select the window. There's an option to show your screen or show one window.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
that looks like it right there.
how do I do that?
It's stop. You have to stop sharing your screen and then just share
Okay.
just the window.
Just the window. I will do that. Okay. How's that?
That's
Did it.
better.
Very good.
Now it's too big. There you go. That's perfect.
Okay. So first off, what is a solid state drive or an SSD? And an SSD is a very simple memory chip. They call it a NAND flash memory, which has no moving parts. And the access time is nearly instantaneous. They are starting to replace, for a little while now, especially Apple, they're going all SSDs, replacing traditional hard drives that spin. They have different platters, and some of them, so the flash-based memory is significantly faster, provides better performance and reliability. The HDDs run slower, and they have speeds that anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 RPMs, but they have to have the spinning platter to spin around, and they have a laser reader that reads all the data. And that's why sometimes if the hard drive is going, it may take, a little while to access some of the data. And the HDD has those moving parts and magnetic platters, and they will, eventually wear down and fail. The thing about the HDDs is not if they fail, it's going to be when they fail. And that's why a lot of people should have, backups. Now, the cost of SSDs, obviously, they are more expensive than the different hard drives. But what you're going to see is the costs starting to come down. A 1 terabyte internal 2.5-inch could cost anywhere between maybe for an HDD, $40 to $60. The same 1 terabyte is around $100 for an SSD. So, you compare it, but when you take a look at the speed and the access of the SSDs, you're going to be very impressed. It's much better than adding memory into your computer. And this is why I think, Apple for the last couple of years, they've been, putting the SSDs in their computers. And now, and Steve probably will go over this later, with the new M1 chip that they have, everything is on the chip. The memory, the video, I think the the different processors, and everything is all on one chip now. So I'm kind of leery about like the new iMacs. You're probably not going to be able to even put memory or add memory into your computers, but and also not able to add SSDs. Once you get the SSD in your new Mac, you're stuck with that. So you may want to think, if you're getting a new Mac from now on, get the biggest one you can afford, the SSDs. Now, the longevity of the SSDs, the SSDs will wear out over time, and they have a certain amount of time that they can be written and erased. And a lot of people have said by the time that an SSD would actually wear out, you're probably, your computer is going to be so obsolete that it really shouldn't matter, especially for, if you're just doing internet and mail and, once in a while watching some video. I mean, that's not going to, be a drain on the SSD. There are some tools that you can take a look at to see if you're approaching the drive's great end of life. Eventually, hard drives will wear out from constant use because they have these spinning platters. So the longevity of an SSD is considered a lot longer than a HDD. Now here's a chart. It's just doing some comparisons of solid state drives and HDDs, and it shows you the access time. The SSDs are a lot faster. The price, SSDs are higher in price, and you can get, I just bought a 4 terabyte HDD for a backup. I think it was like $80. So I said, well, if I wanted to get a 4 terabyte, it's going to cost me $400 or $500 for an SSD. So for backup, I went that way. Reliability, an SSD is probably going to be a lot more reliable because there are no moving parts. And it has better performance over an HDD. An HDD, again, has the moving parts and platters, meaning they're going to probably wear out a lot faster. Capacities, the cost, like I said, for a 1 terabyte SSD, I can get them now for about under $100, which is not a bad price. So once you get into the 2 and 3 and 4 terabytes, it really gets kind of pricey. But if you're looking for something with a large capacity, let's say for a backup, you may want to go with an HDD because you're not necessarily using that, all the time. You're only using it as a backup. Power, SSD uses a lot less power because it doesn't have any moving parts that it has to access compared to a HDD. Noise, no moving parts, no noise. HDDs, you can actually hear sometimes when you wake from sleep, you can hear that disk spinning, and things have to wait until everything spins up a little bit. And so you can actually hear the drive, and sometimes you can tell when the drive is going back bad because it's going to make all this noise and rattling like it's searching, and the hard drive, that's probably the time to replace a hard drive. The size of SSDs come in 2.5 inch, 1.8 inch, and 1 inch. Apple, with previous laptops like MacBook Airs, use a stick SSD, which is built right in. Those are a lot faster than a regular hard drive. And I had one here. So heat, very little heat in an SSD because there are no moving parts compared to the HDD. Magnetism, not affected by magnetism. And a hard drive, an HDD, is affected by magnetism. Now, variants of SSDs. So not all SSDs are made equal. We have one that goes into a PCI slot. In some of the Apple SSDs, these are the stick ones, they are a lot faster. They have 3,500 megabytes read and 29 megabytes write, around that speed. So they are very, very fast. And you have different types of these PCI SSDs. The most common ones that people use are the 2.5 inch, like a regular HDD laptop hard drive. It uses the same interface. They're about 500 megabytes to read and 450 megabytes to write. And if you get them for, around that speed, that's, what these SATA SSDs are going to, the speed is going to be. They have this M2 SATA interface, which is also a stick SSD. So not all SSDs are made equal, and you have to take a look and see which ones you need for your computer. Now, I'll do that a little bit later. Now, I've been putting in SSDs for a lot of people. I've probably done maybe 30 different installs for friends and family and some other people, in Macs, iMacs, MacBook Pros, and all the different. So I've taken the screens off of an iMac, cut the things around it, and in a couple minutes I will show you a couple places to go to show you how to put an SSD in. Those sites do a really good job of step-by-step. But before you do get into actually installing an SSD, what you need to do is clone your new SSD. I use a separate drive setup where I actually copy the drive or clone it. And there are a couple nice software applications out there. One is Super Duper, and the other is Carbon Copy Cloner. Now, I like Carbon Copy Cloner better than Super Duper. I've never had a problem copying anything. A couple times I've had a problem with Super Duper where it says I cannot copy this hard drive, and I use Carbon Copy Cloner, and it clones your hard drive. So when you take out the old one and you put in the new SSD, it boots right up like you never even changed hard drives. You can also use Time Machine to back up and clone your drive. And there is a way that you can use disk utility, I believe, to clone your drive. So there are different ways, but the easiest ones, either Time Machine, Super Duper, or Carbon Copy Cloner. Now, sometimes your Mac needs a fresh install, and it may be time, if you're replacing the drive, that you start fresh with just a fresh OS, nothing installed yet, and then add in your things, your applications later on. If your Mac, if you feel like you have malware or adware or things that are really slowing down your computer, that may be the time to have a fresh install. Macs can be reinstalled by Internet Recovery, which is holding down the Command R and booting and reboot using a Mac OS or using a Mac OS USB to put in a fresh install. So there are a couple ways of putting in a fresh OS. So here is, this is Carbon Copy Cloner. This is what it looks like. And you just select the different drives and the destination, and boom, you click on it and you're on your way, and it clones it. Same thing with Super Duper. It will tell you, okay, which is where you're copying from to, and then you just say copy now and you're all set. Now, one of the places that I use for SSDs is Otherworld Computing. And one of the reasons I use Otherworld Computing is they have different kits. Now, they have different SSDs. They have these Electra 6G, and they have the Mercury Extreme Pro, which is a little bit more expensive. It's a little bit faster. So they have, the different SSDs you can take a look at. The price, it may be a little bit pricier than what you can get other places. But I'll explain this in a moment. Now, Otherworld Computing deals mostly with Apple products. And the one reason I like to deal with Otherworld Computing, because they come with these upgrade install kits. And if you are doing, for example, an iMac, that you have to take the screen off and separate the different, what do you call it? The sticky, was it? The
Very high adhesive bond.
Yeah, the adhesive tape that goes around it, and you can take a look, and here's the adhesive tape that's around that. But they sell everything. They sell even a couple screwdrivers. I don't know how many screwdrivers I've gotten from them, probably about a half a dozen. And I got more suction cups than I need. But the nice thing is they do have the adapter drive where you can stick it in. And one of the most important things here is the inline digital thermal sensor cable. Now, when you do take out an HDD from an Apple product, if it's a 3.5-inch drive and you're putting in a smaller SSD, Apple has a proprietary drive that they have in their iMacs, and there is a wire that goes into the hard drive as a thermal sensor, and it just clips into the hard drive. Whoever makes the hard drive, they have that. Now, other hard drives that you buy won't have that connector, so this is why you need the thermal sensor cable to attach, so it will be able to tell what heat and so forth you have, how hot the different drives are, and so forth. So it does have all the different tools, the pry tool, the screen removal tool. You have a little spludger, they call it, and the adapter drive. And this kit will come with an SSD. So when you take a look at everything, the price is just about right. and it comes with, the adhesive, and it comes with everything you need to replace that SSD in an iMac. Now, if you just need an SSD in a small one, I've been going to Best Buy for 24 bucks. I've been buying SSDs, 240 gigabyte SSDs for 24 bucks. The PNY ones, they work fine. You go other places and you probably spend 40 bucks for that size. So depending on what you need, if you need everything, Otherworld Computing is a good place to go. And again, here's the inline thermal sensor that you attach, very easy. And then you just attach this part right here onto the hard drive, so it will sense the heat of the hard drive, the SSD. The nice thing about Otherworld Computing also, if you go into different on the website, I'm trying to, in support, you click on support, and it has these install videos. Now, if you go and take a look and pick a 2013 27-inch iMac, it will has the instructions of videos, how to install a memory, how to change out a hard drive. Has really good videos, step by step, of how to do the different installations. So it's a really great place to go if you're looking of how to do it. And this is just a picture, shows you, okay, in the video, how to take different things out, and it's very clear and they're very well done. You can also go to, I don't know if people have heard of iFixit. iFixit also has step-by-step pictures and instructions. So if you go to ifixit.com, they do not just Macs, but they do PCs and iPhones, and it will tell you if you want to fix your stuff. Click on it. Click on Mac repair. Mac laptops, desktops, different hardware. They also have different tools that you can get that will help you with the installation of different things. Now, iFixit, what I do is, like, if I'm doing a laptop, laptops can get very intricate in when you take them apart. And there's so many different screws in a laptop, the different sizes. I just print out the different pictures for each step. So when I take the screws out, I tape them onto where they go, and it goes step by step. So when I put it back together, I just take that page, take the screws out, put them where they go, and I'm on my way. So that's one advantage of iFixit. It does have the pictures, and it will tell you step by step. Otherworld Computing has the videos, which are also very good. For example, here is iFixit. This is for a hard drive replacement on a 27-inch iMac, and we'll tell you how to do that. If it just shows you the hard drive, you can substitute, an SSD to put it in there. And it will tell you how long it's going to take and so forth, what tools you need, and then you're on your way. iFixit also has different kits. So you can take a look at iFixit depending on what they have, and they even have their, they use different hard drives. They have the frame for the SSD if you're taking out a HDD, and it has the thermal sensor and the tools you need to take it apart. So we got two places to go that has the whole kits and everything you need to do, let's say an iMac 21-inch or a 27-inch. You can also find videos on YouTube. If you search YouTube, a lot of people show you their way that they replace SSDs in Mac laptops and iMacs. So there's a place you can go and we'll show you different videos on YouTube. Where can you buy the SSDs? Well, you can buy the SSDs. A good place to go, Amazon, Best Buy. If you take a look, especially the smaller ones, they have some good deals on 240 gigabyte SSDs. Like I said, I bought a whole bunch of them. I think it was for $24.99. And whenever I see that, I just buy a couple. Other World Computing, you can go direct to the manufacturer. You can go to ifixit.com. If you have another place, you can get SSDs. And like I said, SSDs now, if you can get a 1 terabyte SSD for under $100, that's not a bad price. 240 gigabyte, usually they're maybe around $40, the common price. 60 or $70 for a 500 gigabyte SSD. So, shop around. They're pretty much about the same, no matter what kind you buy, because they are solid state drives. And like I said, I have been putting in a lot of SSDs, and the first thing that people notice about their computer, and even 2007 and 2010 iMacs, you don't even need a new iMac. It runs just as fast or faster. Well, it will run faster than when you first got it because it has the SSD in it. And people told me, it says, nah, you just saved me $1,500. You just saved me $2,500. I don't have to get a new Mac now. I said, well, I'll take half of that then, But people are amazed at the speed. I always tell, if you can afford to put in more memory along with the SSDs, memories will allow you to open up more windows and more applications and things like that. SSDs are actually going to speed up that computer. I'm going to just turn this off now. Stop sharing. When I have shown people and restarted the computer with their old hard drive, may have taken maybe about a minute and a half. I turn on their computer with the SSD in there, in 15 seconds, boom, they're up and going. And they're just amazed at how fast the computers run.
That's
so one of the things.
Ken, let me jump in for a moment. That's because there's so many little files in the operating system that get opened and closed and opened and closed, because the SSD can read and write files so fast. That's why an SSD can make your computer feel a lot faster than more RAM, unless you have a lot of apps open at once. And then,
Right.
As you said, both is better.
Right. So I advise you can, when I've been putting them in, I've had some extra memory and say, hey, listen, I put in some, just a little extra memory in there for you. That should help you. This is one of the SSDs, like I said, that I've been buying. This is a 240. And this cost me $24.99 at Best Buy. And like I said, I've done a bunch of them for people. Luckily, I haven't ruined any of their computers yet. I've taken very good care of telling them, hey, listen, if you're going to throw this thing out, let me give it a shot. Well, it's okay, give it a shot. That way, if something goes wrong, but you can make a 12-year-old computer work pretty fast with an SSD. And it won't run the latest operating system, but if you're happy with what you got and you can run Safari and different programs that you like, that may save you from having to buy a new computer. So that's why I say, why SSDs? It's a great way to go. If you're looking to extend the life of your computer, and it will make it run real fast and seem a lot snappier. Opening up files, opening up programs, you name it, it will allow you to do all that. And like I said, I was watching part of the presentation yesterday from Apple, the new Apple Silicon Macs, the M1 chip that they have. Like I said, now everything is on one chip. The memory, the processor, the video, and they feel that this one chip, and Steve, you're probably going to go over this, right? Yeah. That this one chip integrated, all these things integrated into one chip is going to make the Mac run a lot faster than just Intel chips, because everything is acting kind of independently on the motherboard. And now Apple has figured out a way, one chip does it all. And one thing I haven't been able to find out, Steve, is they really don't say anything about the speed of the processor, whether it's a 1 megahertz or 2 megahertz or whatever. They kind of left that part out. So I'm just curious, when you do your updates and news, if you've had any information of really how fast these are, these new computers. But anyway, I'm going to end right there. It's doing an SSD is, like I've said, I've done probably over 30 of them for different people, and it works out really well for them, especially, they're older computers, and people are very happy they don't have to spend all that extra money to get new computers, when putting an SSD will actually do the trick and make their computers run really fast. So that is it about SSDs. I don't know if anybody has any questions or.
I have a question.
Sure.
You're talking about putting them inside the computers, which is, labor intensive and risky. I have an external SSD, just plugs in with, USB plug.
Mhm.
How do the price, like you got those SSDs cheap for $25 or so.
Uh-huh.
How much for an external enclosure to put it in?
Well, I just got what is this? Is it a 2 terabyte? I got a 1 terabyte external. I think it was that I used for my MacBook Pro to back up things. I think it was like $95 for a 1 terabyte. You're talking at the 2 terabyte, it may be $150, $200. They go up a lot, if you go over 1 terabyte.
Well, I can do the shopping to figure them out. I'm just wondering, in general, is it better to buy really cheap ones like you were discussing and get an empty enclosure and put it in, or?
Yeah, you can do that.
I'm already in it.
Yeah, I mean, if you have an enclosure, putting an SSD in there for a backup, but the one problem that many people face is they want, for a backup, they want a larger size so it can back up more things in that drive. And that's why I said I just got a 4 terabyte backup drive. It's a laptop size. It's a 2.5 drive, 4 terabyte. I think it was it was $97 or something like that. So I jumped on it.
Yeah, you can use an external drive, an external SSD as a boot drive, but the SSD is hampered by the USB interface, and it's almost not worth it.
Yeah, if you use it, for example, if your hard drive is bad and you have an external SSD, it's going to work. You can have it boot up, but it's not going to work as fast as if you replaced it into the computer.
Yeah.
So,
but Bob does have a point that the external drives are a lot cheaper and a lot less work than replacing the internal drive.
Right. I mean, if you're going to get an external drive and you want it for, let's say, storage or backup, you may want to use, an HDD.
That way you can get more size for the money. Like I said, 4 terabyte for under $100. It's not too bad.
Any other questions you may have for me? None? Well,
All right, Ken. Well, thank you very much.
Yep.
There's
Yeah. One thing that I just
virtual
want
applause
to
button.
point out is you got to be very careful when you are opening up your Macs. You may have a discharge from the power supply. One of the things that you may want to think about if you are, let's say, doing an iMac and taking that apart, unplug it, leave it overnight, and let it try to discharge before you start going into it. But you got to be very careful. Don't start touching things that aren't part of
And
replacing the SSD. So be very careful.
and it's
Take
best.
a look at different instructions from either iFixit or Other World Computing. They do a good job of showing you step by step of what to do. And if anybody wants any help or any advice about SSDs and how to go about it, you can give me a shout out. I'd be glad to help people out.
It's best to have an anti-static mat and a grounding strap, especially on the drives that when you open up the computer, because you don't want to touch any of the circuitry and do a static charge. On the non-Retina laptops, it uses the typical SATA connector, and they're much easier to replace than on the other Macs. So with laptops, it's almost easier to replace the drive until you get to the 2016 models of MacBook Pro, and that's where Apple started soldering the drives down, so then they can't be replaced.
I got a 16-inch MacBook Pro, and I had to go with a bigger size. I went with a 2 terabyte, knowing that I can't upgrade the hard drive, so I got a little bit bigger one. I just got a new iMac, and up to the 2 terabyte hard drive, they are soldered in to the motherboard, the hard drives. Now you can put in more memory. Now it's kind of odd that if you go 2 terabytes and above, is it 2? I think it's 2 terabytes and above. They have a slot for the stick SSDs that you can swap it out. I don't know why they didn't do that for everything, but I guess Apple feels that the speed of these iMacs is going to be faster by soldering them in. And like I said, the new computers coming out, everything is going to be on one chip. You're not going to be able to replace the hard drive. You're not going to be able to replace the memory. You're not going to be able to replace your mother, your father, your daughters, or whatever. It's going to be Apple's controlling things, unlike a PC where you can just open them up and easily take everything out and put new things in.
Well, that's getting to be common in the PC world too, because it's cheaper to manufacture and easier to manufacture.
Right.
There are still more open PCs that you can upgrade, and then of course the Mac Pro that has so many upgrade options. You can easily rack it up to $70,000 with upgrades.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but one thing about these new computers is that if things go wrong and it's out of warranty and it's going to cost you, $1,500 to fix, I may as well just get a new one.
It makes it easier to repair because there's only basically one piece you have to repair, but it does make it more expensive when it's out of warranty.
Right. So that's it for me.
All right. Thanks a lot, Ken.
Okay.
I'm gonna see if
All
I
right.
unpin you. Yeah, unpin you. And I can add Shirley now. There we are. Hi, we have a 2-shot now.
All right, so are you going to go on to Q&A then, since we're done with Ken?
Well, I was planning on going into the Apple stuff because that's going to generate a lot of questions, I'm sure.
All right, well, I was gonna
Or
say,
does
which
any
one's the quicker of the two?
yeah? Let's say, does anyone have any questions not related to the new Apple products?
I do.
Sure.
Well, as you know, I just got the new iMac, and I got it reloaded with from my time machine. Now I worked through, and I haven't typed my password so many times in my life, getting everything set up. But now with a time machine, would it be better just to clear it completely and then start over again now?
Some people, well, Time Machine will ask you the first time it runs if you want to inherit the previous backup or start a new backup. Most of the time, I just inherit the previous backup because it's the same person using the computer with the same data, and so you may want to go back to see what the data was like on the old computer, rather than just starting over on the new computer. Some people also take that as an opportunity to get a new backup drive too, so that you're starting with a fresh drive because those backup drives can wear out also. It's not likely that your main drive and your backup drive will die at the same time, but it can happen, and we have seen it happen. That's one reason we like to say 3 backups, um, and it will allow you at least double failure, and you have that third option. But a lot of people do just inherit their previous backup so that they can still see the old files.
I tried that, and I ended up with 2 complete backups, what I had, and then it kept not, wouldn't work anymore because it was out of memory. So then I eliminated one of those on there, and now it's running, and it says I only got 58 gig left, and there's only, which means I almost got double of everything.
Well,
Backup.
how big is your main drive, and how big is your backup drive?
The backup is a terabyte, and the main drive is a terabyte.
That's the problem.
I only had 500 gig of information on the thing. I've always never had any problem before.
Well, now that you've got a new computer, everything is new, so it backed up everything again.
Yeah, so I got a double of everything.
No, it just backed up everything again.
Yeah.
So your backup drive should always be at least 2 or 3 times greater than your main drive, so it has enough room for that history to save back in time. You can delete it will delete the old backups to make room for the new backups, but that's kind of defeats the purpose of having that backup history. In fact, I had a customer today lost a file 6 months ago, and didn't know it because she only opens it once or twice a year. So we went back in her backup 6 months ago and were able to find the missing file because Time Machine has that history. So I would say you should probably get a bigger backup drive for the new computer, and then leave the smaller backup drive as your historical reference for your old computer.
Hey, Steve,
Yeah.
if you have a external backup drive, does it automatically delete older backups?
Time Machine, when the backup drive gets full, will delete the oldest backups to make room for new backups. And
Okay.
it will warn you it's doing that. What we like to recommend to people at that point is get a new drive so you don't lose any of that historical data, unless you're absolutely sure you're not going to need something from that long ago.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
One thing, like I brought up in the presentation, Carbon Copy Cloner will, if you already have run through the Carbon Copy Cloner to back everything up, then run it again, it will update everything and keep everything new. It doesn't keep a historical backup,
Yeah.
but it will keep everything, what you have on your computer now. So I have Time Machine, I have Carbon Copy Cloner that I use. I have 3 or 4. I use different cloud backups because I have a lot of stuff that, I want to make sure I have.
Yeah, you can never have too many backups. To
Yeah,
that,
Steve, I got a question about, on my MacBook Pro, I'm getting this file, Bluetooth file exchange. I believe it keeps coming up. And I don't know why it's coming up, and what actually triggers it. I've never seen it come up before, and I don't know why it would be coming up.
it's a utility to let you copy files between Bluetooth devices. Typically, you want to copy a file from your computer to your phone. There's a keyboard equivalent that brings it up. I don't remember what that is offhand, but maybe that's getting activated accidentally. Let me see if I can find what the key is. Do you have a like a another Bluetooth device, like an Android phone or a Bluetooth music player, something like that?
No, I mean, the only thing I have connected to it is a Bluetooth mouse, but it seems to maybe sometimes, I don't know if it comes up, like if I go to, let's say, access my iMac from my MacBook Pro, to access files from there, it comes up, but it's all of a sudden, the last month, it's come up and at different times, and I'm just wondering.
Are you using screen sharing or file sharing?
Screen sharing.
Yeah, that shouldn't activate Bluetooth file exchange.
Sometimes file sharing. I'll just have to maybe check the settings.
Check your login settings in your user preferences. Maybe it's set to automatically start at login. Everything I'm finding online is how to make it run, not how to stop it from running itself.
Yeah. Huh. I don't.
Yeah, oftentimes that's used to transfer pictures from an Android phone into your Mac.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes what I do is I have to use screen sharing to copy a file from one computer to the next, because for some reason, when I try to do file sharing, let's say the documents folder doesn't load up for some reason. So I just go to the screen sharing and copy it through there, and I'm not sure if it's, starting from there. I'm using the screen sharing when I copy something.
Steve, can I interrupt here for a moment?
Sure.
I've been chatting back and forth with some people on Zoom about the YouTube stream. And Richard tried to access it and got the same thing I did. And Bob Hoey has replied that I think he's getting the same thing I am, which is just the black screen with a white circle going around and around and around in circles. So I know you said that you were able to see it at your end, but it seems like maybe somewhere between between what you can see and the outer world, it's not getting there.
Well, I'm pulling it in from the outer world. That's weird. Let me try it on a different computer.
And I really enjoyed Ken's presentation, and I certainly hope that the YouTube recording has worked, because I have a feeling it wasn't going out on the stream.
Yeah, we can check that when we're done too.
Yeah, and the number of people watching dropped from like 3 to 2 to 1, which might have been me. Are you also recording the Zoom meeting?
Yeah, but I forgot to hit the record button for the first 10 minutes or so.
And you were great.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it looks like we were really privileged to be here for your presentation, because we're the ones that got it. Darn it.
Yeah.
It would have been great for people to see.
Well, if I have to record it again, I will.
Yeah. You weren't recording at your end, were you, while you did it?
No, I should have.
Yeah. Well, it's, that's sort of like a subset of the great backup question that, we know afterwards that it would have been helpful.
Between the 3 recordings, there should be at least one good one.
Yeah, but if none of them were, if there were no recordings, then we don't got it. And I'm kind of obsessive. I mean, there's so little I can actually contribute in terms of technical know-how, that one of the things I do during the general meeting is to also have the YouTube stream on, just to make sure the sound is coming through and stuff like that. And
Recordings, there should be at least one good.
the problem was I didn't want to interrupt Ken's presentation to point out that because, the trouble can be between chair and keyboard, as they say.
Are you on the YouTube app or the website?
Website.
Try the app. Because I'm using the app on my iPad, and that one's working.
Huh. Oh, the other interesting thing I ran into was I was using the YouTube chat, and a couple of times I've typed in a nice long statement or whatever and hit return, and it doesn't take it. So I will go to the app and see what happens on the iPad.
The vagaries of computers.
So Steve, I have a question.
Sure.
Last couple of evenings, I usually leave my computer on. I woke up in the morning and the computer's off. Now I shut off the other day and it was really warm. I'm wondering if, it's dying.
There is a thermal protection circuit that if it gets too hot, it will shut itself off. There is a program you can run called Max Fan Control, and that will show you the temperatures throughout the system and allow you to increase the fan speed, so it can try to keep it cooler.
Okay.
Ironically, a lot of people don't like the noise and want to make their fans slower and quieter, but then it overheats and causes other problems.
Well, this computer basically is just dead quiet, as always has been. Unless you just put your hand up around the back. Now, of course, mine is a mid 2011 anyway, and so as far as updates, I can't really do anything else with it. But as I said, lately 2 or 3 times now, I've come in and it's off and it's really warm. So I guess I'm thinking maybe it's finally time to put it to bed and bite the bullet and buy a new iMac.
Larry, is it an iMac?
Beg your pardon?
Is it an iMac that you have?
Yep, 21.5 inch, mid 2011.
Try an SSD.
Yeah. One of the things that I have seen, and I'm having a problem with my 2010 MacBook Pro where it keeps shutting off. So I bought some thermal paste, and I'm going to take the thing apart and see if applying new thermal paste, cleaning it off and applying new thermal paste on there. Sometimes, a lot of the Macs have a problem over time where, because you don't have enough thermal paste, that it's not doing the job and it's overheating and
it dries out and loses its effectiveness.
Right. So that could be a way to go, but if you're not willing to open up your iMac and try something, this may be a time
Right.
to get a new one.
Yeah, when I was still working at Xerox, I could probably take it in the lab. I had everything I needed to, to delve into it. But now that I'm retired, I don't have all that choice equipment around me. So I'm kind of slowly lobbying my wife about maybe it's time since 2011 to upgrade.
Yeah,
Sometimes you gotta bite the bullet.
One of the things you may want to keep in mind is you know, the next iMac is probably going to be with the Apple Silicon chip in there.
That's
And-
the mini that they introduced yesterday, I believe, isn't it?
Right. But
Yeah.
you may want to think if you have all your programs and you're really all set with the Intel chip. And that's why I bought my new iMac, because I wanted to keep the things, you know, with that I have for the Intel. Plus I run parallel.
He just says things he shouldn't say,
I
but
run,
he's done a lot for the country.
so I do run Windows on there. And for my information, that Windows may not be able to run on these new Silicon Macs. So I decided, let me bite the bullet and get one now. And this is going to last me, you know, for a while.
Yeah, I watched Apple's introduction yesterday, and I did start to think, well, maybe if I hold off a couple of months, the new iMacs may eventually have this new chip. But I don't know if I would lose anything in terms of some of these old programs. Not that I'm running that many that I really need. I don't know. I got a decision to make, but after I was unmercifully flogged by Steve about not backing up when I took my computer, and I back up ferociously now. So I wouldn't lose anything.
Especially when you think it's dying. I had one today. Woman brought her laptop in and said it won't boot. I get a flashing question mark, and my data is really important. So okay, how many backups do you have? Nobody told me I needed a backup.
Oh,
really?
Okay.
You never heard anyone say backup in the 10 years you've owned your computer, and the drive is dead and your data's gone.
I'm gonna, if I may butt in here for a moment.
Yep.
Personally, my roughly 10-year-old, I'm doing the tap mic thing. Can people hear me all right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I went into Mac after my 10-year-old MacBook died, and I had finally, just shortly before that, gotten into actually backing up. So I walked into the store and told Jackie, I've got my bleep together, and I had the box in my hand, and then it's like, yes, this is beautiful.
Right.
I am what I'm getting, Steve, when I go on my iPad to the YouTube app, it came up and I had a beautiful picture of Larry, but it was a still. And when I poked the play arrow in the screen, it just went to the spinning white circle again. I don't know what's going on. I think probably I should give up on this and just I've tried my best, and I won't keep disrupting the meeting about it, but I think we're not getting the YouTube stream this month.
Well, I tried it on my Mac, and it gave that white circle for a while, and then came up and started working. I did notice it paused and then rushed to catch up to where it was live.
Oh, okay.
Of course, it's probably not a good idea for me to do it, because now I've got 4 video streams running in my house.
Yeah, right. Okay, well, thanks.
Yep.
I will mute.
Okay.
Hey, Steve, I have another question. On backing up my photos, what is the best way to transfer the photos to another hard drive? You know, just the photos itself. Cut and paste them over, or
Just drag the entire library if you want them all.
just grab them all?
Yeah, just drag the library file from your pictures folder. There's one file that has all your pictures in it.
Okay, find that file on the, whereabouts is that located there?
That should be in your pictures folder in your home folder.
Okay.
And then Time Machine takes care of backing up everything and all the changed files too.
Yeah, I know that, but I just always like to have an extra drive.
Yep, especially with photos, because those are often irreplaceable.
Okay, I'll give that a try. And then one other, the last thing, you know, since I jumped a couple of generations of programs, I found some programs with a circle with a cross line. That means they're not working anymore. Is that correct?
Right, not compatible with the current OS. You would have
basically
to
just delete them.
Delete them, and if you need that program, check with the manufacturer to see if they have an update.
Alrighty, thank you.
Yep. Yeah, that's a big issue that people are running into, especially now with Catalina. Either getting a brand new computer, which will come with Catalina now, or upgrading to Catalina. If you have older software, it will quit working, and that seems to mostly be programs from Microsoft, Adobe, and Intuit. So if you're using Office, say 2011, and Quicken, an old Quicken, before more than 2 or 3 years old, any of the Adobe Creative Suite doesn't work. You have to go to Creative Cloud with Adobe, or use the Photoshop. Elements is often a great replacement for the Photoshop you might have had. It does most everything home users need. And then George has been showing off a ton of programs on the iPad and on the Mac that work great for photo editing without needing to pay for the big expense of the Photoshop Creative Cloud.
Yeah, hey, Steve, just one note, anything with a 32-bit
Right.
program will not work on the new, on
Catalina.
on Catalina or beyond. They got rid of, it has to be 64-bit now, so anything with a flash in it is probably a 32-bit program.
I think part of the problem was that Apple gave developers too long. They switched to 32-bit 10 years ago. I'm sorry, they switched to 64-bit 10 years ago and told everyone, all the developers, that one of these days 32-bit software is going to quit working. And developers, in essence, ignored it because it never happened, never happened, never happened. And then suddenly when Mojave came out, people started getting messages, the next version, 32-bit software is not going to work, and everyone had to panic to get their software updated. So I think it was Apple gave developers too much lead time to get to 64-bit. But if you go into your system information application, which is in the utilities folder, there is a section in there called applications, and that will show you all your 32-bit applications, and that will give you a start as to what you might need to upgrade. You can also get to that system information by holding the Option key down, and then go to the Apple menu, and About This Mac turns into System Information, and we'll open the System Information app, and you can see what 32-bit programs you have. But it's Office. You need Microsoft Office 2016 or later. You need Quicken, I think it's 2018 or later. And Adobe Creative Cloud, 2017, 2018 or later. Pretty much anything we're seeing that's a 2017 or later release date seems to be 64-bit. For a while, they were dual binaries where it would be 32 and 64 in one file. So the company that made it would work on an older OS and a newer OS. They didn't have to make two separate programs. And now we're going to start seeing the same thing. We're going to see Intel software and Apple Silicon software in one application file, so they can work on either platform. For people that have been in the Mac community a while, you might remember in was it 2005, 2006, we did the PowerPC to Intel switch. But then about 10 years before that, we went from the 68K to the PowerPC chip and had to replace all our applications. And about 10 years before that, we went from the 6502 to the 68K and had to change all of our applications again. So this is like the fourth major application change that Apple has gone through in their architecture, and is still keeping everything up to date.
For people who have Microsoft applications, LibreOffice can be a good substitute, and the nice thing about that is it's free.
Or even the Apple iWork suite that comes free with all new Macs can read and write the old Office suite. ClarisWorks is a tricky one. Apple's iWork suite used to read the ClarisWorks and AppleWorks files, but they took that feature out a while ago. And LibreOffice is still one of the only programs that can do the ClarisWorks files. So if you have some 20-year-old ClarisWorks files that you need to open, you can do that.
So Steve, why do you think the iMac didn't get this upgrade to this new chip?
Partly because they just came out with the 2020 iMacs. So that's already been in the production line. And a lot of people think it is, so they don't, what's the word I want? They don't want to confuse the whole market at once, and have only Apple Silicon Macs. And some people still need to have the Intel, even though there are compatibility modes built in. So that's one of the things that we're expecting. One things that didn't happen, I'm kind of jumping ahead of myself a little. There were a lot of rumors that the new MacBook Air would be a 14-inch rather than 13.3, by making the bezels smaller, which is the same thing they've done on the iPads. So the iPads are getting bigger screens, but they're getting physically smaller because the bezels are smaller. So maybe that will be the next generation of laptop.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I may wait, but if this thing bites the bullet, I'll have no choice.
Yeah. Well, then it becomes, do you get a 2020 Intel iMac, or do you wait for the 2021 Apple Silicon iMac?
Yeah. We'll see.
You got the bite wrong. The machine bites the dust and you bite the bullet to buy a new one.
Something like that, yeah.
Well, that's why I had to buy this one, because I couldn't wait for the new one, the next one.
Yep. Well, why don't go
one
ahead.
Of the things, one of the things is, you have to decide if you're going to buy, the Intel Mac compared to waiting, is do you want to go through that transition for a couple of years or a year, learning all the new things? If you get the iMac, the current iMac, you just keep on going like you've been going, and you don't have to worry maybe for about 5 or 6 years down the road. So, you kind of balance things out a little bit, and,
Yep. Well, why don't we move into the new Apple announcements? If you didn't get a chance to watch the keynote, it is available now from their website or from the Apple Keynote app, and as a podcast app. They even released a version with a sign language interpreter, so that it's all accessible for signing as well. So the first big thing they announced was the new processor that they called M1. So we have the A series that was used in the Apple iPhones. I don't know why it wasn't an I series. It was the A series. Then we have the W series that's used in some of the watches. And now we have the M series for Macs. And as Ken pointed out a couple of times, it's kind of an integrated chip. And so the entire system is on a single chip, and so they call that an SoC, system on a chip. It's built using a 5-nanometer process, which means basically the wires in the chip are 5 billionths of a meter apart. And so the smaller the process is, the more chips they can get out of a silicon wafer, which makes it faster and makes it cheaper to produce. 16 billion transistors is just mind-boggling on how many transistors they've been able to squeeze in there. And they've unified memory. So as Ken mentioned, the memory is now built into the system chip, which makes everything significantly faster. Video processing is almost 4 times faster. Image processing is more than 7 times faster, because it doesn't have to go out to the DRAM on a separate bus. So you may have heard over the years about level 1 cache and level 2 cache, which is little bits of memory that are in the processor, but they are small, but really fast. And then your regular system memory is on a separate bus that it talks to, and so that's a little bit slower than having the DRAM built into the chip itself. And by building in everything together in one chip, that's one of the ways they've made everything so much faster. What's really interesting is they've got 8 cores in the CPU, and so by having more cores, they can do more parallel processing and make things that much faster. So there's 4 high performance cores and 4 high efficiency cores. And the efficiency cores are the low battery usage, and the high performance, as its name implies, gives you that high performance.
Steve, do you want to
yep.
share your screen with us so we can see
Um,
some of these things you're talking about?
I thought I was. Oh no, I'm sharing the screen to YouTube. Hang on. I have to share the screen to Zoom also. All right, hang on just a second. Host, okay. Share. And I want to do my window, this window. All right, now let's see if that doesn't mess up.
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. And it didn't mess up YouTube. Good. Except now I can't see my screen because Zoom is on top of it. Hang on. All right. All right, can everyone still see it?
Yes.
All right. Okay, so we have an 8-core for the CPU. And so that lets the chip run significantly faster at a significantly lower power than the latest PC chips. And you'll see this phrase a lot as we go through the slides. The latest PC chip, so 25% of the power of a PC chip, which means your battery is going to last longer, and twice as fast as a PC chip. And so everything you have is going to run faster. And what they've been able to do over the years is they've made everything significantly faster at a much lower power requirement. So this year's chip is about 3 times better than last year's chip in performance per watt. So that means the computer draws less power, the computer is less hot, and it has longer battery life. The chip also has an 8-core GPU in it for graphics processing. So now we're up to 16 cores in one processor. And it can do 25,000 concurrent threads of graphic processing. So it can really push the image and the pixels on the screen. And because most of our Retina screens now have millions of pixels to push, it's really handy to have that many threads. And the same way on GPU versus the latest general laptop chips. We're getting twice the performance and 1/3 the power. Machine learning processors. We have a 16-core neural engine. So now we're up to 32 cores in this chip that can do 11 trillion operations per second. And more things are going to use this machine learning neural engine to make things better and better for everything else. And we'll see that as we move farther down the slides. And as I mentioned, serious performance, ridiculous battery life. And in the new MacBook Air and MacBook Pro that we'll get to in a minute, you have 17 hours of battery life on web browsing, 20 hours of movie playback. On the MacBook Air, 15 hours of web browsing, 18 hours of movie playback. And so there was someone made a comment that the battery life is longer than I'm awake in a day. So now, last year when they said 12-hour battery life or 8-hour battery life, they said all-day battery. Now it really is all-day battery, and you don't have to plug in to charge except for overnight. And because Apple is controlling the operating system and the chip, they can optimize everything for each other. So Big Sur is really optimized for the M1 processor. It will still work fine on the Intel chips on current computers, but it is optimized for Big Sur as well. And so everything just runs faster and faster. And because of the security built in between the chip and the OS, you've got hardware verified secure boot. You've got automatic encryption for all your files. Although file encryption is a tricky subject, it's nice that they're encrypted, but if you forget your password, you've lost everything. If you have a dropout and lose some of the bits in the encryption, you may lose everything. Because encrypted data is a blob of noise, and only your password brings the noise back into files. And so it makes having a backup even more important if you encrypt your main data. And what's really cool, because the M1 is based on Apple's A series of chips, you can pretty much run all of your iOS apps. And there's going to be, as I mentioned, several different kinds of apps. You're going to have a universal app that will have Intel code and Apple Silicon code. We need fewer syllables of that M1 code in it, so that it will run on either platform with no issue. And we have Rosetta 2. So if you remember in the early days of the PowerPC to Intel transition, we had Rosetta. So Rosetta 2 allows the M1 processor to not really emulate, but it translates the old Intel code so that your old programs that are Intel only, including intensive programs like Fusion 360 and a lot of different games, will be able to run on an Intel Mac with no translation, no external company upgrade. The existing code will just run the same with the Rosetta 2 built in. And for most people, that will really take away some of the pressure and worry about buying a new Apple Silicon Mac, because all their old software will work just fine. Excuse me. And also, because it's based on the A14, your iPhone and iPad apps will run just fine as well. So a lot of times there's some really cool apps on the iPad or iPhone that don't have a Mac equivalent. Now you'll be able to run those iPhone apps right on your Mac in a window, and it will accept the mouse and trackpad control, because those OSs now have mouse and trackpad built in. In fact, you may have seen that Apple has released a keyboard for the iPad that has a trackpad built in. So it basically turns the iPad into a touchscreen laptop when you add the keyboard to it. And as we'll get here in a minute, Apple released 3 different models of a new Mac with the M1 processor: a new MacBook Air, a new MacBook Pro, and a new Mac Mini. And so let's jump right into the MacBook Air. It's still the same 13-inch wedge-shaped computer. Externally, it looks almost no different than internal. It's going to be available next week. I believe you can pre-order it now. And it starts at the same $999 that the previous MacBook Air was. Again, uses that M1 processor with, what are we were at 32 cores. So right now your current Mac is probably 4-core. If you're lucky, you've got an 8-core. Now we're going to get 32 cores. So it's like a 32-cylinder engine instead of the 4-cylinder engine you're running now. So with those 8 CPU cores, the 8 GPU cores, so especially games, 3D intensive applications will be able to take advantage of that GPU. The long battery life, and on the Air, there is no fan. So there's absolutely no noise coming from the computer, no fan at all. Because the chip can run so much faster, it doesn't need to have that fan to move the air out. The neural engine can be used for retouching your photos. The magic wand filter that sort of magically makes a photo better with the brightness and contrast and highlights and shadows, it's doing all that for you in its own brain. And then we go to Big Sur, which is the same for all of them.
Steve, can I ask
yeah.
a question about these? And I kind of touched on it earlier. Is, Apple does not say, like, give a comparison, like from the old computers, like, okay, this is a 2.6 gigahertz.
Yeah, clock speed doesn't matter. And it's even been confusing in the last few years, where a newer generation chip has a slower clock speed than an old generation chip. Even right now, we see that in the MacBook Pro, the 2 gigahertz 10th generation processor is faster than the 3 gigahertz 9th generation processor. So Apple has wanted to stop giving clock speeds because they've been irrelevant for years. And it's impossible to compare clock speeds between different chip families. So a 2 gigahertz i5 versus a 2 gigahertz i9, the clock speed doesn't matter. The i9 is faster because it's a more efficient internal chip. So they are comparing the speed, the few things we've talked about where things are faster than the previous computer. So everything is running faster than the previous computer. It doesn't matter what the clock speed is now.
Now, is this with the way the graphics are, and they're talking about how you can play intensive games, is this going to allow Macs to now be a gaming computer?
Well, they already can be. The problem is companies don't write games first for the Mac. You've got the Xbox, you've got the PlayStation, you've got the Nintendo, you've got the Switch, and then you've got Android, and then you've got iPhone, and then you've got Windows, and then you've got Mac. So developers have to choose their platform on what they're going to write for first. And there's a lot of push in the console gaming for the tier 1 games. And then in the mobile gaming on the iPad, or iPhone especially, and now that the M1 chip can run all the iPhone games as well, I think we will probably start seeing more games that are marketed toward the Mac, because you don't have to, as a developer, you don't have to do much anything extra to make your program work on a Mac versus an iPhone. And the iPhone has been where the money is, and so that's where most of the game developers have gone is making iPhone games, and that's sort of the irony of Fortnite. It's a free game that earns $1 million a day. The company brought in what was it, $15 billion last year. The CEO personally made like $5 billion last year, and they're suing Apple because they want more money. They don't want Apple to get a cut, even though they're doing all the distribution for them. But yeah, there's no clock speed listings because it's a mostly irrelevant number. If you ask a car guy what RPM does his car go to, it doesn't matter how fast the RPM is. It matters your gearing. It matters your top speed. It matters how fast it is compared to the other car. And then along with your SSD, they have made the SSDs faster. There are a couple of differences between SSDs. There are cheap SSDs that use what's called a multi-level cell. So every cell on the SSD can store a certain number of values. It's how much charge it has in it. And in the early days, a single cell would store a single bit. So either electricity on or electricity off. And then in order to make SSDs bigger, they had to put more of these chips in, which means more expensive. And that's why the larger SSD drives got to be really expensive. Then they started doing multi-level cells, where each cell can now store 2 bits. And so there's 4 different electricity states in the cell. The single level cell SSDs are all much faster, but they are much more expensive than a multi-level cell SSD. So if you're looking for speed, that's why you saw in that OWC list between the two different drives they made, one was faster and more expensive, one was cheaper. So if you're just a day-to-day user, you can probably go with the cheaper one. If you're working billable hours and you're editing with Photoshop, you probably want to go with the more expensive but faster drive. And then with this MacBook Air now, you can put up to 2 terabytes of storage and up to 16 gigabytes of main memory. And because that main memory is unified in the CPU, it actually feels and acts like a lot more memory. They're saying about double actual memory on the way the old computers had it, because the memory is unified in the CPU and the GPU. Less memory can do more, so you can get up to 16 gigs, and that would act like a 32 gig machine would be today. And then the secure enclave, like the phones, and the previous Macs have had that secure enclave for your encryption data, your fingerprint data. The MacBook Air does that too. We still have the Retina screens. That hasn't changed much, except it's now 25% more colors than the previous color model. It was sRGB, and now we're using P3 if you're a color geek. So you get more colors on screen, so it's a wider color palette. They're more vibrant colors. The True Tone in the MacBook Air now allows you to see the colors more naturally as they are. And it actually uses the camera to read your room lighting and adjust the color temperature of the screen so that the colors on screen are consistent from a light room to a dark room. And you may not even notice that white point changing through the day as the True Tone keeps that working. Now, the camera is interesting. The new image signal processor in the M1 chip makes everything the camera does better. So you better FaceTime calls, better video conferencing, better photographs. You have 3 mics so that it can hear things better. The problem that a lot of people are annoyed about is it's still only 720p. So it's a relatively low resolution, but it's a much higher quality camera than the previous model. And so that's a little confusing to people. Again, like the clock speed, it's only a 720p camera, and they don't really say that anywhere unless you look deep down into the specs. But because of the neural engine, because of the image signal processor, everything looks better. Because you have mics, 3 different mics that point in different directions. You have a mic on your voice, and it can basically triangulate where the audio is coming from. So when you're talking, it can focus on you and not hear any ambient noise coming around you. The new keyboard we think is the same. As we start seeing some of these hit the street and companies do their teardowns, iFixit is well known for tearing apart brand new computers. In fact, they often will fly to Australia because they're ahead of the time zones and get their hands on a new computer so that they can tear it apart before East Coast of America wakes up in the morning. And it gives you the backlit keyboard, the ambient light sensor. Let's see. Yeah, they're trying to tout the new refined scissor mechanism, so they're not butterflies anymore. The trackpad has grown bigger and bigger each year, so you have more room to do your controls with. The same Touch ID, that's the same as the current Air. So a couple of new speeds and feeds on the inside. Wi-Fi 6, which is the new name for 802.11. Oh shoot, I lost it now. So right now we're on Wi-Fi 5, which is AC. What was next? AG? Crap, I forgot the letters. But Wi-Fi 6 now. So old computers, in the last couple of years are Wi-Fi 5. Now we're moving to Wi-Fi 6. Bigger, better, faster. More radio bands, so there's less traffic congestion, so you can get a lot of very fast throughput with Wi-Fi 6. And USB 4 and Thunderbolt 4, which means there's enough bandwidth now for the MacBook Air to run Apple's 6K display. You can transfer it over 40 gigabits per second between devices. And so, as we were sort of mentioning earlier, if you want a very fast external drive, don't get a USB drive, get a Thunderbolt drive. Especially a Thunderbolt SSD will be a lot faster to be your boot drive, but it's going to be quite a bit more expensive than a USB drive. But that is a lot easier to do than tearing a computer apart to put the SSD on the inside bus as well. And then we're going to compare these in a minute. So the MacBook Air, as we mentioned, starts at the same $999 that it was, and we'll bring that up here. Same colors available: space gray, gold, and silver. Although the gold is more of a gold than the rose gold it was, so it looks like it's a new gold. And so the big difference between the models now again is the storage. 8 gigs of RAM and 256 storage for $999, 512 storage for $1249. There's also a weird difference here with the GPU. The cheaper one has a 7-core GPU. The more expensive one has the 8-core GPU. And as they mentioned, you can get up to a 2 terabyte solid state drive. So if you want something very, very light, but still very fast, we can do the 16 gigs of RAM, we can do the 2 terabytes of storage, and it's only $2,000. So we always like to max everything out to see what we're going to get. And so this is a pretty powerful workhorse with that, especially the 2 terabytes of storage, but still very, very light in their the weight. So it's very easy to carry around. And then I'm going to need something to drink, so that's what we need our break for. We'll break around. So in addition to the MacBook Pro, start over. In addition to the MacBook Air, we also have a new MacBook Pro 13-inch. Almost 3 times faster than the previous MacBook Pro, 5 times faster in graphics, 11 times faster for machine learning, and again, that 20 hours of battery life because it's done with the M1 processor. And also still starting at $1299 for the model. Let's see, the same M1. So there we have our Super M. So that's what's a little interesting this year, is all of the Macs they announced are using the same M1 processor. So they all have the same base speed, so they're differentiating the computers a little bit differently. So the MacBook Pro has a few more options to it than the MacBook Air does, where the MacBook Air's biggest difference is on how light it is. So if you want a little bit lighter, you go with a MacBook Air. If you want a little more power and a little more options, you go with the MacBook Pro. Again, the 8-core CPU, the 8-core GPU, the 16-core neural engine, those are all the same. Big Sur is all the same. The apps are all the same. The MacBook Pro has an active cooling system so that it can stay cooler, which does make it a little more powerful. The M1 will speed up and slow down as needed based on how much heat it's generating. So if you're doing something intensive like a video render, on the MacBook Air, it may have to slow down a little so it doesn't generate too much heat. With the MacBook Pro, it has that active fan in it, so it can keep running at a higher speed for longer. And up to 20 hours of battery life, 2 terabytes of storage. And it's faster storage than on the MacBook Air. So that's a little thing to make it a little faster. Let's see, same security, same Retina, same P3. Screen's a little brighter, 500 nits. I think the MacBook Air is 300 nits. Again, the camera and the mic array based on the neural engine gives you better quality, even though it's still only a 720p. And the signal-to-noise ratio on the 13-inch, they call it a studio quality mic array. Although I don't know of anyone that would actually record an open studio with an ambient mic. You're much better off with a dedicated microphone. Let's see, the keyboard is the same, the scissors are the same, Touch ID is the same. Connections, the same Wi-Fi 6 and USB 4, Thunderbolt 4. A lot of people were concerned about Thunderbolt on the Apple Silicon because that's an Intel technology. So Apple recreated Thunderbolt in Apple Silicon. And USB 4 is basically Thunderbolt 3. And so they've sort of merged the two standards together. So now PCs that offer USB 4 will also be able to do a lot of things that the Thunderbolt 3 used to do. And again, you can do that 6K monitor. And that's the buy now, so we can see the different prices. So they start at the same $1299 for 8 RAM and 256 storage, and then $1499 for 8 RAM and 512 storage. And as Ken mentioned, because you can't upgrade the RAM or the storage later, you may want to custom order and order a little bit more now, it depends if you want to upgrade to a new computer in 3 or 4 years, or if you want this one to last 5 or 6 years. So we go to 512 storage, the 2 terabyte drive. We're at $2,300, so it's basically $200 more than the MacBook Air, but it does run a little bit faster than the Air because of the difference in the thermals. So I'm going to go back 2 more pages, and we're going to bring up this compare list. And that's not the compare list I wanted, sorry. We're going to go back here. So the M1 based computers are the same prices. And what's interesting on the MacBook Pro is they have kept the Intel models in the product line at the same $1799 and $1999 model they were at. So if you still have a huge need for an Intel specific program that doesn't work well in the Rosetta 2 on an M1, or what this is probably more for is businesses who don't want to be the first to get an Apple Silicon computer. The Intel versions are still available. We are wondering, and we'll see as soon as some of the Intel Macs hit the real world, what the performance differences are. So if the cheaper computers are faster, like they say they are, it's interesting to see why they kept these newer models, kept the old models to be available. And then the 16-inch is still the same 16-inch Intel version. So that one didn't get the M processor yet as well. But wait, there's more. In fact, that was the slogan on the announcements. One more thing. And so they showed off the new laptops, and then did the one more thing as an homage to Steve. The new Mac Mini. Now this is the one we all expected because Apple had a developer what do they call it? Developer transition kit that developers could rent or borrow, but they could borrow it for $500, which was basically a Mac Mini with an A14 processor. And it was an iPad Pro in a Mac Mini case for developers to get their programs to work right. And so now the Mac Mini with the full Intel processor, the full Apple Silicon processor is available now as well. So again, 3 times faster CPU, 6 times faster graphics, 15 times faster machine learning, also available next week. This is probably going to be all very similar to what we already looked at. So it's the same Mac Mini design. We did see that it is, one RAM to rule them all, with apologies to J.R.R. Tolkien. There are a couple of differences in the Mac Mini. Let me find where the rear connection is. So the new Mac Mini has 2 USB 4 ports and 2 USB A ports. And the current Mac Mini had 4 USB-C Thunderbolt 3 ports and 2 USB A's. So that can be a little different. If you have a lot of things plugged into a Mac Mini, you may need to get adapters to have more plugs. But you can use an HDMI monitor, and that gives you 4 USB ports for your storage or connections. Thunderbolt USB 4, Wi-Fi 6, Big Sur. Yeah, so that's all the same again. So a couple of differences in the configurations for the Mac Mini. So just like the MacBook Airs, the CPU, RAM, and storage are part of that silicon on a chip, so you can't upgrade them. The M1 Mac Minis are only available in silver. And they lowered the price, which was nice. It's now $1699 with 256 storage and $899 with 512 storage. So the price is down $100 on the entry level and $200 on the higher model. They're also gigabit Ethernet. They removed the 10 gigabit Ethernet option. Very few people were using the 10 gigabit Ethernet. It was basically just the server farms that wanted that 10 gigabit. And if we go in to customize it, The maximum RAM is now 16 gigs. The current Mac Mini can go more RAM. And the current Mac Mini has socketed RAM, which can be an advantage. And only 2 terabytes of storage. So we're at $16.99. So without a monitor, it's cheaper than the MacBook Air and MacBook Pro. But basically is the laptop in a portable desktop case. So we have seen people that will carry their Mac Mini and then plug into like a TV where they're going at the other end instead of needing to do multiple monitors. And also interesting, they've kept the old Mac Mini. They did lower its price a little bit to $10.99. But on the old Mac Mini, there's still the option to go more RAM and more storage and faster processors. So we can go up to an i7, go to 64 gigs of RAM, and still 2 terabytes of storage. So we're at 20. Might as well throw in that 10 gigabit while we're there. It's only $100, you know. So you'll be ready for when 10 gigabit is handy in 10 years. So you're pushing $3,000 for a high-end Mac Mini, using the older model, and the older model is only available in space gray. So that's kind of interesting, where they went back to silver for the new model. So we didn't get any extra colors for the Mac Mini that we were kind of hoping for. But there are companies like, what is it, Mac Colo in Las Vegas that literally have thousands of Mac Minis in a server rack doing server stuff. So you don't need much internal storage because it's doing processing. And with the Thunderbolt port, you can put fast external storage on it as well. That's been one of the concerns on especially the laptops that only come. They start, especially when they started at only 128 gigs of RAM. 128 gigs of storage. That wasn't a lot. 256 is kind of okay. That you've got your internal storage as your system and your applications, and for a lot of people, you then use external storage for your data files. But that's a little inconvenient on a laptop where you need to carry things around. So I've always liked getting the bigger drive inside the laptop. So as we mentioned earlier, the iMac did not get a Apple Silicon version, and then the 16-inch MacBook Pro did not get the Apple Silicon version, and then still the Mac Pro that they just announced, the super expensive Mac Pro Hollywood video editor, basically. The Mac Pro, which is really cool design. That did not get an Intel model. We figure the Mac Pro is probably going to be the last one because the Mac Pro is still using the Xeon workstation class chip. Starts at $6,000, and they spent a couple of years building it, so it's probably going to be one of the last ones that switched to Apple Silicon. But one of the options that the Mac Pro has, let me get down here and find it. Well, while we're going down, let's max it out just for grins and giggles. So let's see. So it comes with an 8-core processor. If we bump it to a 28-core processor, it's only $7,000 more. If we go up to 1.5 terabytes of RAM, $25,000 more. We can go to a super whiz-bang video card. In fact, 2 video cards with 32 gigs of RAM each. That was $11,000 more. Now here's where we've talked about SSDs. 1 terabyte, that's a small jump. 2 terabytes, a small jump. 4 terabytes is a big jump. 8 terabytes is a huge jump. Now, so $2,600 more for an 8 terabyte drive. There it is, the Afterburner card. So the Apple Afterburner card is $2,000, but basically the Afterburner card is Apple Silicon. It is their custom ASICs and custom silicon that makes rendering in Final Cut especially fast. And so people that are doing Final Cut video, $2,000 seems like a lot for it to accelerate Final Cut. But if you can get more renders done in a day, even regular Hollywood movies now, almost every shot has some sort of digital enhancement. It used to be only the CG heavy movies would have a lot of computer enhancement on it, but not pretty much every movie is. Digital sets are getting to be so common now. In fact, there was one of the fallouts of the Apple Epic lawsuit. The Epic lawsuit between Apple and Epic is the Unreal Engine was threatened for a little bit, and so many companies are using Unreal for so many different things. Lucasfilm uses Unreal to generate all the landscapes for Mandalorian, and so it's not just games that use these engines. There's a lot of photometry. What's the name? Can't think of the name. Different types of photo analysis that will use the Unreal Engine for generating things like that. Yeah, so we're at $53,000. Might as well throw in Final Cut and Logic while they're there. And then, of course, you want twin 6K monitors, so that adds another $10,000. So that'll probably be the last computer to move to Apple Silicon, and it may end up doing 3 or 4, M3 processors or M4 processors to make everything that much faster. So the M1 system on a chip, giving Apple even more control over the processor and the operating system, so they don't have to wait for Intel. So that's one of the reasons they're switching to their own silicon right now, is they don't have to wait for Intel to make a better chip. Intel has been kind of stuck in a rut the last 3 or 4 years, where they haven't been able to make chips that much better, that much faster. And it's one of the reasons Apple went to their own silicon with the phones, too, because Qualcomm and Broadcom make general-purpose CPUs, where Apple takes the ARM specification. You may hear the term ARM-based computer. They take the ARM specification and customize something like an Android phone uses a generic ARM chip. And there was one slide in their keynote that the M1 is faster than 98% of all of the current PC laptops on the market. And when the A12 chip came out, was it now 2 years ago, the iPhone was the fastest phone of all the phones. The chip was so much faster than the Snapdragon chips that the Intel or the Android phones are using. And now we've got the A14 is even faster yet. Even the cheap phone, the iPhone SE, has a super fast Apple processor in it. And it is much faster than most of the Android phones that are out. So you look at even the iPhone SE, let alone the 12 or 12 Pro, has that super fast processor in it. Let me scroll down here to find it. It's got the A13 in it now, where the iPhone 12s now have the A14, so they're even faster yet. So it's all about speed and less about the statistics, but by having the number of cores built in, where is it? Go back to this one. By having that 8 GPU cores, 8 CPU cores, 16 billion transistors, 32 or 16 neural engine cores, everything is just so much faster than the previous generation. We don't need to know clock speeds anymore. Until we do, and then they'll start touting it again. They actually did the same thing in the Motorola to Intel transition. The Motorola chips ran faster than the Intel chips. So they put out a video explaining why the 2 gigahertz Motorola PowerPC was faster than the 3 gigahertz Intel Core 2, or probably Core 1 at that time, because of the internal chip design. Clock speed as a single statistic doesn't mean much anymore. All right. Has anyone pre-ordered yet? Pre-ordered any of it? Let's go. Oh, that was the Air. No, I want to do a Pro. So if I were buying one myself, the 8512 would probably be enough for me at $12.99. So it's availability. Order today, available November 27th. So already the November 17th shipment dates are gone. So if you ordered on day 1, you get it next week. Now we're looking at 2 or 3 weeks already. So hopefully by next meeting, we'll have a couple of people that will be using. Nope, that's not what I want. We'll be using or having the new machines. And I want to stop sharing at the moment. So where is my? This is new share. How do I stop sharing? More. No. If I go into share, I can pick what
It's
to
under
share.
stop video.
I don't want to stop my video. I want to stop my sharing.
Steve, if somebody was going to be ordering an iMac today, would they be getting Big Sur as operating system? Do you know?
Probably not. Oh, that's something to mention too. Let me get back to that screen. The new computers are coming with Big Sur pre-installed. Mac OS. Big Sur is getting its public release next week as well.
Tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow. Ahead of the new computers. So right now, only the brand new 3 new computers they announced will come with Big Sur pre-installed. It's likely that an iMac and the any of the Intel-based Macs will still have Catalina in it for a few months. It usually takes them a few months to switch over to a new OS, and a lot of times they wait until it's a new computer to put the new OS pre-installed, because some people don't want to have to deal with the brand new OS messing up whatever old apps they have. So it'll probably be a few months before it comes out. There's the stop share button. Okay, now go back to just me. We can go to gallery view, and now we can see everybody. Hi. Everybody wave at YouTube. If somebody watches YouTube later. And George, you got that risque
Steve?
girl back there still.
Steve,
Yes.
I'll interrupt. I attempted to send a message through the Zoom chat. I don't know if it really happened. With me, you never know. And basically what it is that I finally got the YouTube stream coming up on my laptop, and I went back to the start of it, and it does have Ken's presentation.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it means we have a recording of it, but you know,
Yep.
hopefully.
In OBS, when I started the YouTube stream, I remembered to start the YouTube recording. It was the Zoom recording I forgot to start. I had it set to auto start, and so I didn't think of it, but then I noticed that it wasn't recording, so then I hit the manual record. It's supposed to automatically start recording.
When you do Zoom updates, do you have to double check how those things are?
I bet that's what happened. Yep, I installed an update before we did this.
Can I do a real dumb question?
Sure.
So everybody
I might give
can
you a real
laugh.
dumb answer.
Has to be about my speed. You know how on like the MacBook, if I'm in an app and I go to help, I can get all kinds of help topics. You know?
Yep.
Is there an equivalent function in an iPad, or you just Google your question and see what you find?
Some apps do have their own help, but there's no consistent help system in the iPad.
Okay, thanks.
A little frustrating that way. Alrighty. I'm going to take a break and go refill my my drink of choice, which is nearly empty here. So talk amongst yourselves for a few minutes, or Shirley, you can extol your presidential wisdom onto us.
That's not very much. It's hard for me where it goes participants, where I can only see 9 screens at a time. which is interesting. I don't know if there's a way to see everybody, but I don't know. Though I have to say, Ken, I like your background right now with the earth
Yeah,
kind of back there.
and
So I guess I will say,
got that one too.
has everybody got their Christmas shopping done?
Of course not.
Since it feels like summer, right? Until maybe tomorrow, whenever this cold spell that's supposed to come, they keep talking about. But
Shirley, if you want to see everyone, you can just do gallery view. There's a little
I did
icon
do that,
over in the right
but
side.
it just, I don't have,
Rick,
Yeah.
on-
I have
iPad.
participants.
I'm following this on my iPad too, and when I go to the gallery view, I get the 9 tiles.
You only
that-
get 9 on an iPad.
I'm
Yeah.
getting
Yeah, 'cause
1,
I'm
2,
on-
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 people.
on,
Yes,
on an iPad.
not on the iPad.
No, not on an iPad. I'm on a Mac.
On the iPad, you only get 9.
I'm on a
Yes.
MacBook
Scroll down.
Pro, 15-inch.
You just scroll down to see them all.
It all depends on the size of your screen, how many they can put on there.
I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, each device.
Oh,
Oh God, she froze. It must be.
I
that
think we
stalker
lost her.
behind her.
There she is.
There's a stalker behind her.
Yeah, he's got to get his drink of choice.
I just wanted
Kind of thing.
to bring up something. I have some old legacy Macs that my wife has told me I gotta kind of clear out space.
Did you sell any of your stuff that you were advertising last time?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
I mean I have I sold my old iMac to buy my new one. I sold a 17-inch MacBook Pro. I also sold a MacBook, but I have some old lampshade iMacs. I have a couple G5 towers and some G4 towers. And
So
obviously-
what happens? So
Yeah.
what happens, Ken, if you can't sell those after you get to a certain point and they just don't go, and your wife says they have to leave? What are you going to do with them?
Hide them.
You can recycle them at the electronics recycling places.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes, especially during this COVID time, I go down in the basement and I spend hours, trying to boot up some old one. I mean, I have some older ones that I have that I'm keeping, but I have duplicates of these G4s and G5s and stuff like that it's time to get rid of them.
I could see your wife's point, though. There becomes a point when you have copies of all these, it's like you don't need them. You need to let them go.
Yeah.
Pass them
Right.
onward, do whatever, donate
Well,
them.
years ago, I used to get donations, and I used to work with the kids and give the computers away, to the kids after they got
Yeah,
done.
but they're so old now, aren't they? That they're
Oh
not
yeah,
worth.
I mean, but I had literally my half of the garage filled, stacked with Macs, and and I was working on them and giving them away, and supplying computer labs and things like that. Those were the days when I had probably maybe 100 different Macs in my garage. Now I may have 10 or 12, maybe a couple more than that, but it's time to get rid of some of the duplicate ones I have, like some of the G4 towers and G5 towers and the lampshade iMacs.
What might be interesting? Put Linux on one and then build a presentation for it, just to see.
Yeah.
We already have. Well, we got arguing about this on Soundbites last week. We already have Unix underneath our Macs, so we don't need to run Linux too. But why not? We can.
Yeah, it's give me something to do.
Yeah.
Run Linux and I did that some years ago. Put Linux on a couple of Macs, and you know,
It's a little easier to do on an Intel Mac, but there still are PowerPC distros available as well.
right. The Macs I'm getting rid of are not Intel.
Yeah.
They're the G5, G4s. I even have a G3 tower. I have
What color? Is it the blue and white one or the beige one?
it's the beige one.
Yeah.
Which is kind of nice because it's easy. Well, the green one was, good to work with.
The whole door opened up. Yep, that was those were neat.
Yeah.
The 9600 was annoying because you had to pull the logic board out to replace the RAM.
Yeah, I think I have I have an 8600.
Yep.
I did have a couple of the 90s. I mean, I had every variety of Mac you could think of when I was getting all these donations, and I wish I would have kept a couple of these other older ones. But
there is a computer museum that specializes in Macs. Oh, there's one in Prague too. The Vintage Mac Museum, the largest collection of Apple equipment. But you may want to reach out to some of them and see if they need anything.
Sounds like
That'd be kind of neat if your computer ends up in a museum.
Yeah. Yeah, the ones I have are pretty still, they're pretty common ones. I think I have the only oldest one I have is like a Mac 2 or something like that.
Steve, speaking of Linux, I've been dual booting my Mac for some time in Linux. And about a month or two ago, I tried to get back to the Mac and it froze the whole machine up. So I wound up actually having to overwrite the hard drive and restore it. Fortunately, I had my backup.
Yep.
But what I found, just personally, while Linux was kind of fun, my Mac does what I need it to do. It's set up to do everything I want it to do. I don't have to go back and forth between things. And after a while, Linux just got to be a chore. Now, I guess if you really want to go that route and just become a Linux person, you can. But my machine's doing everything I need it to do now, and I quite frankly, I find it a little easier than the Microsoft world. So I kind of abandoned it after a while.
A lot of people...
You can also
go ahead.
You can also use a virtual machine and run Linux on that
without doing a dual boot. Yep.
Right.
A lot of people in the Linux world like the price. Everything is free. All the apps are free. The OS is free, and there are equivalent apps to everything in the Mac and Windows world. Sometimes at least I have noticed it's kind of the older, long time users that started with DOS and loved the command line, and that's why they like Linux, and they grudgingly put a GUI on top of it. But I remember on Soundbites years ago, probably when OS X first came out, and I brought up a command line, and one of the Linux guys that used to come to the show all the time was just so excited there was a command line, and it was Bash, and he typed commands and they worked. And so as OS X, that's when Apple first switched to a Linux underpinning.
I kind of cut my teeth on MS-DOS.
Yep.
I was glad when Microsoft went to something a little bit different. But, unlike Nick, who absolutely loves it, after a while, I just said, where's the utility in this when I can just boot back up into Mac? Everything I need is there, and I don't have to look for it. I don't have to find it. I don't have to remember the command line. Maybe I'm just getting lazy. But after a while, I said, just let me go back to my Mac interface. I brought it back up in a couple of months now.
Whatever you're used to is kind of what you're used to. So
yeah.
We talked about
lazy. I started out lazy and stayed there.
Yeah. We also were talking on Soundbites about the division between hardware is that you're either Unix or you're Windows. So Macs are based on Unix, Linux is based on Unix, Chrome is based on Unix, iPad, Android are based on Unix, and so Unix is everything, and then there's Windows. And there's a lot of talk inside Microsoft of switching to a Linux kernel away from the NT kernel. So maybe the Windows 11 or whatever they're working on for their Windows subscription might go to a Linux kernel. They're already starting to allow Linux apps to run under Windows natively. So there's a Linux, basically a Linux VM coming in Windows, especially the enterprise versions. But if it ends up being based on Linux, then that would be interesting too.
Yeah, well, I think for now I'm kind of done with it. It was fun for a while. It kind of reminded me of playing with DOS.
Yeah.
Way back in the day. But I think at this point I'm kind of done with it.
From my life.
This is just fine.
You kind of get tired of playing with typing in path names all the time.
Yeah, well.
A few years ago. I'm sorry. So a few years ago, when Linux was kind of swinging to popularity again, a customer wanted us to set up his old PC with Linux, and we were a little, surprised, because that's sort of half the point of Linux is you set it all up yourself and have fun doing it. Nope, he wanted to have us set it all up. You can buy name brand PCs with Linux pre-installed. I know Dell makes several models of pre-installed Linux. You can go that way if you like. In fact, that's one of the common things we talk about on Soundbites, is that an old PC that doesn't have the horsepower to run Windows or even the latest Mac OS, you could put Linux on it and it would run just fine. Put a GUI on it, it would run just fine. Most of the stuff you do is probably on the web. So even the Chrome OS, like Neverware, which would turn your computer into basically a Chromebook, which is a web browser. You get all the modern security of a modern Chrome web browser on an older computer. So if putting in the SSD doesn't make your old Mac run a lot faster, you could put Neverware on it and turn it into a Chromebook and do everything in the web browser that you're probably already doing everything on Safari.
I got a comment.
Sure.
This is unrelated to that stuff about operating systems, but you might remember that I complained about the remote for Apple TV.
Yeah.
It'd fall out of my hands. It was just this little thing, but I upgraded it and I put Jupyter on the back, and I now have a pop-up, and it doesn't fall out of my hands anymore. I can just, with my thumb, I can operate it. It looks a little funky because when it sits down, it sits like that on the desk. But
there is another remote. What country was it? Sweden.
I'm trying to find it. Yeah.
Function 101, I think it's called.
Yeah, that was it. Lori Gill on Mac Break was talking about it.
Right, and I mentioned it last month, I think also.
Yeah. It looked very appealing to me.
Yeah, but Sweden, I think, was one of the countries or the country where it came out of, that people were very upset with the new remote, and they produced this remote. And Apple was selling it with, whatever it came with the Apple TV and so forth. And so they just recently made it available in the US. I ended up buying two because I always drop my remote in between the cushions and in the couch. And it doesn't have the touch.
That's the thing most people don't like.
Yeah, the touch or the Siri commands on there. but if I ever need it, I get the other one out. But this
Yep.
one is, just like a regular remote and works, I don't lose it.
And a lot of people don't realize they can train the Apple TV to work with your existing remote. You can use your Time Warner remote that you're using on your cable or your TV remote. In the Apple TV settings, there's a Learn Remote button. And so it can be programmed to use your current remote, so you don't have to use the Apple TV remote if you don't want to.
Oh, cool. You learn something new every day.
Well, I always liked the remote, except without this knob on it.
Yeah.
You pick it up in the dark and you don't know which way is up.
It's too symmetrical.
And then, of course, it's slippery and it's small and it falls out all the time. But with a knob, I catch it. And it's ironic because I'm right-handed, but holding it in my left hand, it just works better. If I try to do it, because where the buttons are, if I put it in my right hand, it's just not as convenient. But in my left hand, it's no brainer. It just works.
I got an idea that what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue it to the back of my Time Warner remote. That way, all I have to do is just switch it over.
Turn it upside down, yeah.
Hey, good night, everybody. I got to go.
All right, good night, Ken. Thanks a lot. Great presentation.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
There were a lot of
right.
a lot of disconcertion when Apple removed the Apple TV remote app from the App Store, but they've built it into iOS. You bring down your control center. There's an Apple TV remote, so you can use your iPhone or your iPad as an Apple TV remote. So apparently they have heard people don't like the remote, and they're giving you other ways to do it. All right, yeah. Any last questions about anything?
Yeah, I have one other comment. Since I probably have every computer I ever owned, going back to the Apple IIc, and the 5.5, the discs and all that. I still have of all of them. What's the best thing to do with them all? Besides throw them away.
Well, as we were talking to Ken earlier, maybe contact some museums. The Strong Museum of Play, maybe. I know they had a computer exhibit. There's a big museum in Seattle that has a lot of old Apple stuff. If
You can try selling it on eBay too. There are still some old vintage computers out there.
Still people looking for things to complete their collection.
Okay.
I've got a 20th anniversary Mac at work, but my Apple III smoked at a CIDER meeting, so CIDER owes me a new Apple III. No.
All right. Any more questions? Are we pretty much done that we can say goodnight?
Hi, Mabel. How you doing? Good to see you. You're muted, but that's okay. Kind of like these Zoom meetings where people can come out even if they haven't been able to make it to a physical meeting in a while.
True. Interesting, mostly above my head, but interesting.
So is everybody done with their election stress?
Almost.
I'm recounting by hand. I saw a great meme today that you think the Democrats rigged the election and they still let Mitch McConnell win?
Yeah. Well, until it's finally over, until it's over. It might be January before it's over.
Well, it might be 4 or 5
So-
years too sometimes. There's still other elections.
Yep.
One of the big changes is my email inbox. It dropped off a cliff. I was getting like 1,000 a day.
All those political ads and money
now it's down to
donations
a
and
couple hundred.
And Bob, I'm sorry, I keep missing your meeting. I keep,
Put a re-
I start out.
put a
and I'm like,
reminder
oh,
on your
it's gonna be
iPhone.
I do, but it's going to be 4 o'clock, and then I start. It's like 2, and I go, oh well, I'm going to go do something. Next thing I know, it's like 5 o'clock, and I'm like, it's over again.
That's why you put a reminder, so it pops
I'm
up and
going to
reminds
get in
you.
there.
If anybody wants to participate, we have a political chat on Mondays at 4 o'clock. Just send me an email. I'll invite you in.
Kim, I like your
it's a
foreground.
nice-
Whoops. Yeah, go finish.
Well, what's interesting is it's mostly women.
Yeah, we got a couple guys here and there, but
Oh, you do? Okay.
but I
It was
I'm
definitely
gonna
interesting.
feel
log
like
out and
a
shut
minority.
down. This thing's really running hot right now. I mean, it is hot.
Yeah, I'm at
No
158
problem,
degrees.
Larry.
See
We
you,
don't
Larry.
want you to have a, we don't want you to have a fire.
Well, if this thing gets any hotter, I'm going to be standing and looking at Steve in the store.
Yeah.
This thing, I want to say good night, everyone, and I'm going to log out and shut down. This thing
Okay.
really is
Yep.
hot.
Good
night.
night till next
All right.
month.
Good night.
Yeah, I like Kim's foreground appliance there. Most of us have backgrounds put up, but she's got one in the foreground to hide the background.
So, when does everybody think that they might want to go out into public again? Are we going to wait? I know we're going to wait till next year.
Maybe about April.
You think
Let's see
April?
what happens with vaccines. That's the
Yeah.
big one.
That's true. If they get it out there, it's going to be how long is it going to take them to actually get it out to the stores?
Yeah.
You know, where you can actually get a
Oh,
shot.
yeah, 100 degrees below zero. What's the big deal?
Yeah,
Yeah, everyone's we're used to
I'm
being stuck at
definitely
home
going
in
to
the
wait
winter.
till after we have that vaccine. I'm not
Yeah.
going to be doing much of anything till then.
I wonder when they stop cooling it. If it's got to be kept at 100 degrees below, they're not going to stick it
I mean,
frozen icicle into your face.
Well, yeah, no, they have to thaw it out, obviously. But I think the thing was that they can't just go in a mobile unit unless they had someone that could keep it that cold.
Well, how long before
Oh.
they use it do they bring it to human temperatures?
well, you know, we know it's still going to be months before this all happens, but at least it's positive to say that they finally have somebody finally has something. And they said they have lots of people working on this, so I'm sure there'll be more and more companies will start coming forward
Yeah,
after a
there'll be
point.
other versions of it, hopefully, that don't have to
Yeah,
be
and then it'll be
that
like
cold.
which one's going to be the best for whatever country maybe, or whoever. I mean, because it's not just the United States that's going to get all these things, but so it'll be interesting. So I guess it'll probably be at least March then. So I can be a virtual president for the whole year until the next elections, pretty
Yeah,
much.
surely you could refuse to leave office. You know.
I can just say, hey, you gotta come and get me. So you never know. Well, you know, I mean, at least there's like I said, something good on the horizon as far as that is. And then the rest of it will be, you know, doing more of the same of what we're doing. And I guess, you know, all these cases going up is because we all want to be together with people. And it's Thanksgiving, which is a family thing, Christmas, a family thing. Then in January, everybody's like, I don't want to be around you no more. So then everything will be okay and it'll be cold, but nobody will be congregating supposedly because there'll be nothing to congregate for, so to speak.
Well,
No
we had our
holidays.
First house guest this last weekend. My brother from Auburn came up with his wife, and we sat out on the deck, distancing and all that, but we actually got together. And I'm a liberal, he's a conservative. And his daughter, who's in broadcasting in Connecticut, he promised her he wasn't going to vote for Trump, but then he voted for a third party.
Yeah.
She called him up, calling him a liar. You were going to vote for Biden, blah, blah, blah. He said, well, I didn't vote for Trump. He didn't even know the name of the guy he voted for, just somebody else. And,
which meant it went nowhere.
Well, I read, I forget what jurisdiction it was, but there is some place where none of the above is on the ballot.
Oh yeah.
It's an actual choice.
It might be New Mexico or Nevada. I can't remember which one.
My
Yeah,
niece
but you
told her
could choose
husband
none.
that if he voted for Trump, he'd have to sleep in the basement. And she made him take a picture of his vote in the voting booth, and to prove that he voted her way.
Yeah.
Well, I went and worked the polls on Tuesday, and I have to tell you that at
Did you make
6
any
o'clock
tips?
when they opened, no, at 6 o'clock in the morning when the polls opened for the first hour, there was a huge long line. After that, all the way up until 9 o'clock at night, there was a constant trickle of people, but there was no big groups after that. So we expected like lunchtime, dinner time, you know, close to 9 o'clock. No. So
Shirley?
that was good because everybody was, pre-voted and sent in their ballots and everything. So we just
Yeah.
sort of sat around for 17 hours. It was a long day.
Thanks for doing that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. It was interesting. We all just chatted among ourselves pretty much. So it was nice to kind of like meet my neighbors, so to speak, because all the people were basically around us. Though I probably never see them again, even though they're close. It's like, unless you run into somebody, you'd probably say, hey, you look familiar, but it was good because I was nervous about it. I thought there'd be like this deluge of people, but there really wasn't. So we'll see how it goes. So I'm glad everybody voted anyways. It was like a very interesting election, how it all went. And I guess we'll have to wait and see what the final thing is, which again could be for another 2 months.
I read
or
that
whatever,
in the Native American demographic, they had a 97% turnout.
Wow.
And so that's why they think Biden won Arizona.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
that-
even if it's 4 votes, if you're ahead of the other guy, you won, I mean, you can recount them all you want and everything, but it doesn't change the end result kind of thing. So, it's just hard watching all these things that he's doing now and just saying, oh my God, 2 months we still have to go through to see what else he's going to do to destroy everything. And then he will never hear the end of it. The rest of his life will be like, I should have won. I should have won. Though I heard he wants to come back in 2024.
Well, he's still carping about 2016.
Yeah, I know.
Big things he wants to prove that
now
Putin didn't help him.
Let's watch Joe Biden when he gets inaugurated, right? And he has this humongous crowd, and that's going to tick him off again because, he had the best big crowd. It was like, really? I mean, the man lives in a delusional bubble. That's all there is to it.
Well, I don't know how big a crowd Biden's going to have, during COVID.
I don't think so.
Oh, there's still going to be enough people out there.
It'll be a drive up. It'll be a drive-through crowd.
Yeah, and there'll be a lot of people on social media and all sorts of stuff too. But I mean, it's going to be interesting.
There was another meme going around about all the people driving by the White House that you should live your life so that when you lose your job, people don't have a parade in front of your house.
Hey, he's not going to fade away. That's the one thing. Until he dies, he will not fade away. So.
No,
Besides, Dawn.
Yeah, I figured that he'll be a guest on the talk shows.
He'll be on. Well, he doesn't like
Fox
Fox and Friends
things,
anymore,
yeah.
so who knows where he's going?
He's gonna try to buy OAN and have it Fox News or not.
Yeah.
Fox, but Trump.
He wants to have Trump news, Trump world. Well, that was what he was going to do before he won as president because he didn't think he was going to win, and he was already working on having his own network where he could do whatever he wanted. But and then when he won, he was like, oh, okay, I'm not going to do that. But I bet you in a way he's relieved, even though it's against his principles, because he doesn't have to be president. He can golf all the time now.
I don't think he likes to lose.
He doesn't like to lose.
I know.
But
I know he doesn't. It'll never go away. So
there was a report when he won in 2016 that some insider said he didn't realize it would be that much work. And then a couple of months ago, there was another insider that said,
he's not doing anything
right
now.
Yeah, and that's too much work.
Firing people that he likes to do that, but that's about it. He doesn't read the Daily Bulletin. He doesn't do anything. He hasn't attended a coronavirus task force in like 2 months.
Well, because he's not concerned about it. He doesn't care.
He's on sabbatical.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been on sabbatical for quite a while.
I like the nice comment. I like the nice comment that I saw that said Trump had the 2020 experience. He got COVID, he lost his job, and he's going to get evicted.
Yeah, I saw that. And then the apprentice thing, you're fired, right?
Yeah.
And I like Joe Biden's thing is said, you know, he can say all he wants, but January 20th, he said, you know, they'll escort him firmly out of the White House if he doesn't leave, because now he's a private citizen and he's trespassing. So no matter what, he's going to have to leave.
He said a
There
couple of
is no
times.
choice.
He said a couple of times before the election that if he lost, he would move out of the country. So Joe Biden tweeted back, "Bye, Dan."
Yeah.
And the joke is he's going to have to avoid prosecution.
Yeah.
He's going to go to Turkey
So-
to visit his live in his Trump Tower in Turkey, in Istanbul.
Yeah, but the president of Turkey has already thanked Biden for winning. So who knows, you know, where he can go. Maybe Putin hasn't said anything yet, so
With
maybe he
that-
can go live in Russia.
There was a report I read about all of the presidents have left a letter to the incoming president on, you know, wishing you well, and here's what I learned, and have had meetings with the transition team, and Trump hasn't even started a transition team. Won't talk to anyone on Biden's transition team because there's no transition in his mind.
Oh no, his what is it? Pompano, whatever. He's already said that, you know, Trump's having his second term. They're getting ready for that
Yep.
position because, you know, Biden hasn't won in his mind. So we're just going to pretend that Trump won. We're going to keep right on going because we're going to live in denial land until he too is kicked out. And Biden says, I think you need to leave now. Vacate your post. You know.
I need to leave now. I'm gonna sign off here.
Yeah.
Well,
it's-
say
it's
hello to
getting
Carol.
late.
Take care.
Yep.
I'll send you an
Bye,
invite
Bob.
on Monday. Anybody
Bye,
else
yeah.
wants to join on Monday at 4, just give me an email. And I'll invite you.
See you next Wednesday, Bob.
Bye.
Bye.
That's right. Yes. Board meeting.
Yes, and it's an early. Hey, George. I see you over there waving. Are you leaving too? Yes. Okay.
He put this. He's at
See
the
you-
Simpsons
we'll
house, so
see
I
you
went to the
next
Family Guy
Wednesday.
house.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
I got a Zoom question here. What happens now? Bear in mind, I am on an iPad, but if I go into more, and I will now hit raise hand, what does that show?
It shows a little emoji hand.
It does on to everybody.
Yeah. It's supposed to let the host know that you have a question.
Why don't you do it so we can see it?
He did.
Well, I just did it.
Oh, okay.
I'll do it again.
Oh, I didn't see it.
I see it. Maybe because I'm the
Oh,
host.
wait, yeah.
I didn't see it.
Yeah, I don't see it.
Well, yeah, no, I don't see it either. But I mean, actually, it must still be up because
Yeah.
it now says lower hand, which I will do.
Yeah, but we do see your actual hand touching the button.
Maybe it only goes.
That's it.
Maybe
I think it just
only-
goes to the moderator
may
to
just
Must
say
see.
be
the
just the
host.
moderator
Yeah.
for that one.
Right.
If you do the applause one or the thumbs up one, then everybody can see it.
Yeah, I can do it.
All right, so I guess are we ready then for
ta-da.
next week for our board meeting
Oh yeah.
and
Do
everything?
we know
And
what
we'll
our
be-
topic is next month?
We have right now Christmas tech gifts,
There's
and
plenty of
everyone is supposed to have an app that they recommend,
Yeah,
or
and I'll tell.
or a tech gift that they want to recommend, and where to buy it.
I will tell you right now that I'm just not a big app guy, so I'm not going to be any
Well,
help there.
you know, think of something that you think would be a good gift for a techie, maybe.
It doesn't have to be
That
a
you
tech gift.
saw or read or whatever that you think maybe somebody might be interested in.
Like a book on how to move to the woods and simplify your life or something. and
Yes,
just
that would be fine. It doesn't have to be, you know, a tech equipment per se. It could be a book. It could be something. The idea is for all of us to participate to our audience, right? And just
And if we
brief
don't,
1 minute.
board meeting.
Yeah, well, you know, the tech guys are going to go find their tech apps and stuff. I'm not so much onto that, but I might say this might be a good gift for a tech person. You know, I don't know. I'll have to look.
All right, I guess I'm going to say goodnight.
All right, Charlie, we'll
Okay.
look forward to your minutes and we'll see you next week.
Yes,
Hi,
ma'am.
Charlie.
I'm gonna sign
Bye.
off too, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
Why don't you close the
I should do
meeting,
the
All
Shirley?
same.
right. Very good. Then good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Why don't you do your closing spiel, Shirley? Good night, dog.
Jim, you're on their dice. All right.
Everyone, 2 devices.
Oh, everybody's dropping off.
All right. I'm going to shut down the YouTube stream. So good night, everyone. And we'll see you next month.